Is it possible Lou Lamoriello buys out one or more players on the current Islanders roster to free up cap space and add more talent? We'll talk about the players who are most likely to be bought out and whether it's likely to happen next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
You're Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. We have got a lot to get to on today's show, but first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you can email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long. During the offseason, that means hirings, firings, trade rumors, free agency, and the draft. If it's happening to the New York Islanders, we'll talk about it here on the Locked On Islanders podcast. And it's always great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. We have heard so many rumors about Lou Lamoriello wanting to add talent to this team. And everydayers, you know, we've talked about the obstacles to adding that talent, most of them created by Lou Lamoriello himself, and some of the questionable contracts, both in length and in term, and the modified no trade and full no trade clauses that went along with some of them, the lack of overall cap space. All of these things make it challenging, but not impossible for the New York Islanders to make some trades and maneuvers to improve this roster. And look, let's face it, clearly the Islanders need to get better if they hope to compete with the Floridas and the New York Rangers and the Boston Bruins and the, Tampa Bay Lightnings and the Carolina Hurricanes, all those teams that have been at or near the top of the Eastern Conference standings. Clearly, on paper, better than the New York Islanders. The Islanders need to get, as everydayers know, younger, faster, and more skilled. One way to do it is by trade, but as I mentioned, that's not easy because you have these bad contracts. You have players who, is anybody going to want to take Anders Lee with a $7 million cap hit attached to him based on the, lack of offensive production, 20 goals, 32, 33 points on the season. And for that, you're going to turn around and say, yeah, okay, here's, a $7 million cap hit. And, by the way, there's 2 years left on that deal. There are a lot of players on this roster who either have too much money for their production, too many years on their contracts, thinking about Pierre Engvall, thinking about Scott Mayfield, or a combination of both, plus the no trade clauses, the age, the lack of production, all of those factors that you have to consider. So one other option that NHL teams have when they want to free up cap space is the buyout. And buyouts are usually a last resort in the NHL. it is just not what you want to do if you can help it. But sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures. Now, since Lou Lamoriello joined this team as GM, he has never bought out any player. That being said, Lou Lamoriello has also never really talked as much about improving this roster and, making changes to the core than he has this offseason. I mean, a year ago, all you heard was, I believe in this core. This year, you're hearing a little bit more of, hey, we need to get a little bit better. Let's see if he can do it. And certainly the trade that Lou made, moving back 2 places in the first round from 18th to 20th, moving back a few spots in the second round to pick up an extra second rounder, that trade with Chicago about 3 weeks ago. That indicates that you're thinking of making another move. And whether you use that extra second round pick to sweeten a deal, much like the Islanders did with Josh Bailey before the start of last season, that is a possibility. But the 2 players who most experts have talked about the Islanders moving on from by buyout, first was Anders Lee. And I think Lee, to me, should be the leading candidate on this list, only because he's earning so much money at $7 million a year, and his production is probably around half that. That I couldn't imagine any team taking him off the Islanders' hands unless they either sweeten the deal with a pick or the rights to a player or a player, or if they throw in an extra draft pick. I don't think Lou is willing to buy out his captain. I think that wouldn't look good in his mind, but I still think the thought of paying Anders Lee $7 million a year to play on your third line and give you, last year 20 goals, probably, going to see continually reduced production from Lee based on his age and his situation. That doesn't make sense. But the other player who The Athletic highlighted, and they basically did an article earlier this week talking about league-wide 12 players to watch as possible buyout candidates. And one Islander was on that list, and it wasn't Anders Lee. It was actually, surprise, surprise, J.G. Pageau. And look, if they were to buy out Pageau, they would end up saving, he has $5 million cap hit for the next 2 years. So he's earning less money than Lee. He also only had 11 goals and 30 points or so, 34 points was it on the season. But the difference between Lee and Pageau, it was 33 points on the season, but the difference between Lee and Pageau kills penalties. Pageau is great in the face-off circle. Pageau is probably your best defensive center out of the 4 that played last year substantially at the position. So he has other value. Now, that being said, is he worth $5 million a year based on his current production? Absolutely not. That is just not the case. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't have value. And, you'd save $2.75 million on the cap this year. You'd save $2.25 million in 25-26. Then you'd still have to pay $1.25 million to Pageau the following 2 years without, getting anything in return. So there'd be dead cap money in 26, 27, and 27, 28. I, again, don't think the buyout is most likely. To me, the buyout for Lou Lamoriello would be, I can't move anybody. This is my only option left, and I'll do it to try to save money. It would be much like the trade of Devon Taves a few years back, not a hockey move, but a desperation move. We really need to free up cap space to make this team better. This is one of my few options. I still think Pajot has trade value. You may have to retain some salary or sweeten the pot with a pick. To me, teams like San Jose, like Chicago, like Anaheim, who have a lot of cap space, they could take on a bad contract, but the buyout option remains. If I had to bet, and I'm not a betting man per se, I'd say it's much less than 50-50 that a buyout is the option that Lou Lamoriello chooses. It is a last resort kind of a move, and I don't think that's what Lou Lamoriello wants to do. We have got a lot more to discuss on today's show. We continue looking at draft profiles, players who the Islanders could pick 20th overall if they hold on to the pick. Today, Michael Hage. Plus, we continue our player-by-player look at the team as we profile Noah Dobson's season, and we look ahead to what his role with the team will be next year. And for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a goalie who was with the Islanders for 1 year in the late 2000s when injuries struck on goal. He is a native of Quebec. Let's see if you can guess who that is. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time makes getting NBA tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. My favorite feature on Game Time remains the view from your seat. You sign on to the app, and you get a panoramic view of your seat, what you see from your seat before you purchase the tickets. That way you know exactly what to expect. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we continue our look at some players the Islanders may be able to select in the draft with the 20th overall pick. And today we talk about Michael Hage, the Mississauga, Ontario native, playing for the Chicago Steel of the United States Hockey League last year. 33 goals and 75 points in 54 games, added 2 goals and 4 points in 2 playoff games for the Steel. And he is going to play at the University of Michigan next year. He is 6'1", 190 pounds, so he's already got decent size. Now, obviously, he can certainly get bigger. And to play in the NHL, you're going to want that. He was clearly one of the better players in the USHL. His puck skills and his shot are probably his biggest assets at this point. He's really good at making one-on-one, and his playmaking is not outstanding, but good enough. and he has a pretty good shot, but his biggest asset at this point are his feet and his hands. He's a center, got the size, and guess what, Islander fans? His skating is pro caliber, and that is very good. He's a good shooter and a pretty good passer, and he is capable of making the players around him better based on the way that, he can improve the play of his line mates. His team in the USHL was not a great team, but he helped make them better. And his work ethic is also very, very good. And that is something that the Islanders certainly would appreciate. Did not get invited to the World Juniors by Team Canada last year. And you have to think that he is going to make a contribution at Michigan as a freshman. One advantage that I like about Michael Hage is that I just get the feeling that he is a player who may not need as much time as some of the other players going in this draft, because he already is bigger, not so much as far as height, but the weight that he has on his frame. And I like his hockey awareness. Now, does he need to improve a little bit on defense? Yeah. Does he need to be a little bit more consistent? Yes. But he battles, he stays on pucks, and he has a very high hockey IQ. And that certainly is, something that I think the Islanders would be looking for. And I just think it would be a really good addition to the New York Islanders as far as, looking ahead to maybe just 2 or 3 years down the road rather than 3 or 4 years down the road. Also, just wanted to play a little clip. I mentioned every day, as you'll remember, I mentioned earlier this week, we had our Locked On NHL mock draft. Well, our experts from Locked On NHL Prospects, they chimed in on all the picks made in the mock draft. Here's what they had to say about my pick at 20 by the Islanders.
At 20th overall, we have the New York Islanders making their selection, and the 20th pick selected by the Locked On Isles podcast is Tarek Parasak of the Prince George Cougars, a personal favorite of mine. I'm really happy to see him go at 20 here. One of the most intelligent players in this draft. For me, a top 3 in terms of smarts in this class. His ability to support play, his ability to anticipate play and make reads in the offensive zone, next to none. I really like his skating is bad. He always gets to pucks first on retrievals. He always gets to spots in the offensive zone first. He's always well positioned. Somehow always open in the slot, which is just, again, makes no sense given his skating ability. But he just reads the game so well. His two-way games refined as well. Scored, 100 points as a rookie this season in the WHL. I know it's the Prince George Cougars. I know it's a good team. Still, a rookie forced his way onto the top 6 and scored 100 points. That's worth mentioning. And any other prospect in this situation, I think, would be higher up rankings. But the intelligence, the goal-scoring ability, the two-way game, there's so much to work with here with Parasak. I think he's going to develop into a fantastic player, potentially a second-liner. No-brainer here for me at 20th overall. And a good selection by the Isles, and one that makes sense given what they usually go for. Kind of these smart, kind of forechecking wingers. Fits the mold exactly.
All right. Well, thanks to Hadi Kalakesh and Sebastian over there for their analysis. And just thought you guys would like to see a little more background on the player that I picked with the 20th overall selection in our Locked On NHL mock draft. All right. We have got a lot more to get to on today's show. We will continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders roster. We will take a look at Noah Dobson. Did he have a good year? What were his strengths and weaknesses? And what will his role likely be next season? We've got that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. So we continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders today with, well, we will talk about Noah Dobson. And Dauber, he really had a breakout year. 79 games played, 10 goals, 60 assists, 70 points. First Islanders defenseman to reach that milestone in offensive productivity since, some guy named Dennis Potvin. Yeah, him. Hall of Famer, Dennis Potvin. He was a plus 12, which was a career best as well. One of his goals and 23 of his assists came on the power play. He also played a career high 24 minutes and 31 seconds of ice time. Look, I think Dobson took his offensive game to another level this year. He also blocked 180 shots this year for the New York Islanders. And to me, that is an outstanding statistic. He led the Islanders in that category, 9 more than Alexander Romanov, who was, next best on the team. And Romanov played 2 extra games as compared to Dobson. So Dauber getting in front of those shots, not afraid to sacrifice his body to make plays. And that is encouraging because you really want to see that. You don't want even a good offensive defenseman to neglect the defensive game. Now, that's not to say there were not issues. Dobson was better in his own zone than he had been in the past, but he still needs to work on his consistency. He still needs to be better at clearing the puck out of his own zone. And I think his hockey IQ, his awareness of as a power play quarterback and as just a player who runs an offense, the NBA, the NHL equivalent of a point guard. I think these are areas that he really can improve upon. The other thing is this: in the middle of the season, the Islanders had injuries on their blue line at different points. Both Adam Pelech and Ryan Pollock were out of the lineup. Scott Mayfield was either struggling to try to play through injuries or was sidelined. And there were games mid-season where Noah Dobson was playing 26, 28, 29 minutes a game. It took a toll on him. By the end of the season, Noah Dobson really appeared tired. And you may say, okay, he needs to, increase his stamina a little bit. But down the stretch, Dobson went through a period between March 10th and April 2nd where he did not score a goal and he had just 2 assists in, that 3.5 week period. He only had 1 assist in the playoffs. You were hoping for better from him there. And again, just whether it's work on stamina or the Islanders just have to pace him a little bit more, these are things that he certainly needs to work on. But I'm nitpicking. Dobson is going to again be the team's top puck-moving defenseman next year. And the key is this: he is in the last year of his current deal. And he's earning on this bridge deal $4 million a year. As of July 1st, Lou Lamoriello can sign Noah Dobson to a new contract extension. The question is, will he sign him this offseason? And if so, how long of a deal and at what cap hit? Now, remember, any extension will not affect the cap for this year. He's playing on a $4 million deal. But clearly, the Islanders want to wrap up Dobson long term. And we'll see whether or not Dobson does that. Now, if he does not sign a deal, Dobson does have arbitration rights next offseason. So there's always that possibility, but I have the feeling both player and team want to reach an agreement and sign up Noah Dobson and just not nail down a new deal for Dauber and get that done, because it really will help the New York Islanders. Dobson, still a relatively young player. He's 24 years old, won't turn 25 until January. Just in the prime of his career, the early part of his prime right now. And the Islanders are going to, I think Dobson is likely going to be one of the players the Islanders build around, a right shot defenseman who can give you 60, 70, maybe even more points if the Islanders can add another offensive player to their lineup and improve that to the top line and the power play. Noah Dobson, don't expect his role on this team to diminish in the coming year. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. Now, we're a couple of days early on this one, but Friday will be the 43rd birthday of former Islanders goalie Jean Denis. Denis, a native of LaFontaine, Quebec, 5'11", 180 pounds, went to Brown University, made his NHL debut in 05-06 with the Montreal Canadiens, and joined the Islanders for the 08-09 season, which was his only year on the island. Played in 31 games, had a very respectable 2.86 goals against average and a 910 save percentage. For Jean Denis, I mean, that was yet again another time when Rick DiPietro was hurt. The Islanders needed goaltending depth, and Denis was there. Later played for the Devils and the Oilers before ending his NHL career, his pro career after the 2016-2017 season. Played in 55 games in the NHL, a 279 career goals against average and a 908 save percentage. One of his better games as an Islander, this one's easy. Islanders hosting the Devils at the Nassau Coliseum, February 21st, 2009. Scott Clemenson, the goalie for New Jersey. Obviously, Jean Denis, the goalie for the Islanders. And in this game, the Islanders outshot 40-38, but end up winning the game by a score of 4-0. A 40-save shutout for Jean Denis, our Islanders birthday of the day. Now, keep in mind the Devils were 38-18-3 coming into this game, while the Islanders were 17-35-6. So, the Islanders were underdogs for sure. 2 assists for Mark Streit, 2 assists for Franz Nielsen, and goals for Sean Bergenheim, Bill Guerin, Kyle Oposo, and John Sim in this game. And, of course, Jean Denis with the shutout and 40 saves. So Jean Denis is our Islanders birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow on the show, we continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders. We're going to talk about 2 guys who were kind of part-time players or bit players for the Islanders. We're going to talk about Ken Appleby and Grant Hutton, and then we will close out our player-by-player look at the Islanders on Friday when we feature the last player on our list, Semyon Varlamov. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and of course, let's go Islanders.